The story begins with a man named John Crankton, who is fishing alone in a river in Louisiana. At the end of the day, he starts packing up his gear and notices there's something in the water causing a disturbance. As he leans over to see what it is, the creature suddenly attacks him, and he falls into the river. When John resurfaces, his shirt is torn, and the water around him is changing color. He screams and struggles, trying to get closer to the boat, but he is yanked forcefully again, and this time he does not come back. The next day, forensic doctor Sam Rivers is working on another case when his boss interrupts him. He informs him that a dismembered body has appeared in the Otley swamp, and Sam has to go there, as he is the only one who grew up in that area, and the locals don't talk much to outsiders. Sam reluctantly agrees and arrives in Otley the following morning. The sheriff shows him what's left of John Crankton and says the official story is a crocodile attack, but they both agree that doesn't match the injuries. Next, Sam meets biologist Mary Callahan, who will be his partner in this investigation, and they take a boat to the location where John's remains were found. The photos leave Mary shocked, and she says no crocodile could have done that, but it's a crocodile that Mary spots near the bank a few kilometers later. She finds it strange that the animal hasn't hidden itself with the approach of the boat and decides to get closer to investigate. Prodding the crocodile with the oar, she discovers it's just its head and can't tell what could have ripped it off like that. Sam suggests that someone could have done this on purpose, since the locals have a weird sense of humor. Mary herself proves this when they find fisherman Elmer, who is having fun with a catfish. The fun ends when they explain they are from the police, and Elmer claims he knows nothing about what happened to John. However, as soon as he convinces himself he's not in trouble, Elmer agrees to help and takes the visitors to the fisherman's village. John's widow is Gloria, a very wise woman full of spirituality. Her daughter Eliza called her boyfriend, Dan, to help with the move, but she won't let anyone touch her altar. Elmer introduces Sam and Mary, explaining they want to talk about John's death. Gloria tells them that the swamp seems to be under the effect of a curse since the last storm. Bridging the science and the mysticism of the mother, Eliza explains that a hurricane passed through Otley 3 months ago, bringing with it a very strange boat. It was after this that things began to change in the swamp, including driving the fish away. Gloria said she made a protection circle and begged her husband not to leave it, but he didn't listen to her. Sam asks to see the boat, and she sends Elmer along, distributing some protection amulets. She begs Sam to put an end to this evil presence, warning that nothing can keep the evil under control after she moves away. At the house next door, the atmosphere is much more casual. Elmer's niece, Bobby, lives there with her husband, Roland. Seeing the couple so comfortable on the porch, Elmer grumbles that they have no shame. Arriving at the mysterious boat, he says he'd rather stay outside and warns that he's not going to wait all day. Mary discovers signs that the crew was Chinese, and Sam tries to get something to work, but he doesn't succeed. However, without him noticing, one of the switches activates the boat's locator. When they decide to check the hold, the stench is so intense that Mary has to hold her nose. It's very dark, but Sam uses the camera light to see what is spread across the floor and discovers it's the crew. Feeling sick, Mary runs to the deck, unaware that something is watching her from below the water. She is startled to find a fish scale fallen on the ground and says she's never seen one that size. In her haste to leave the boat, she rushes back to the other one so hurriedly that she knocks Elmer over. He doesn't take it badly and even laughs because he doesn't see something swimming quickly toward him. The creature attacks him in front of Sam and Mary, but it all happens so fast they don't get a good look at it. Elmer is dragged away by a colossal force, leaving the other two terrified and in shock. Back at Gloria's house, they don't even need to tell her what happened because she can sense the tragedy from their expressions. Meanwhile, a young Asian man named Anton is informed by his cronies that the lost boat has started emitting a signal again. Annoyed to discover they were searching in the wrong place, he calls his boss, a millionaire named Jeff. He becomes even angrier with the news and decides to personally retrieve the boat's cargo to prevent further confusion. Anton tries to dissuade him, warning that the swamp is inhabited by dangerous beasts, but Jeff is very stubborn. In the village, everyone mourns Elmer's loss. As it's getting dark, Sam explains that he will only be able to seek help the next day. Roland thinks it's better not to disturb the creatures of the swamp, and Dan doesn't seem to believe much in this monster story. A little later, Anton finds his boss at the docks and becomes irritated again upon seeing an unfamiliar face. Jeff introduces him to Benjamin, saying they've hunted together many times, and he will take care of anything that interferes with the mission. At the village pier, Sam asks Mary what that creature could have been. She says there are few carnivorous fish in the world, and even so, none would have a scale that size. Then they both jump in surprise when something emerges from the water, relieved to see it's another neighbor, Ricardo. He found John's remains and had been refusing to talk to the police about it. Now he says the swamp is not like other places, and if they don't accept that fact, they won't leave there alive. Ricardo admits he doesn't know exactly what killed John, but warns that he swore to avenge his friend and assures that he will take down that monster himself. The gloomy conversation is interrupted when Gloria announces that dinner is served. Sam indulges in the local cuisine, while Mary and Dan, the only outsiders, make an effort not to show their disgust. Only then does Sam reveal that he was also born there, and Eliza recognizes him as they were schoolmates. Without any discretion, Gloria asks if this was the famous Sam that her daughter wanted to date back then. The comment makes Mary suppress a laugh, while Eliza turns bright red with embarrassment, but Dan finds no humor in it. He reacts so rudely that Eliza chooses to leave the table to argue with him outside. This precaution doesn't work very well since everyone can still hear them perfectly. After dinner, Gloria offers Sam a tea while the two girls talk outside. Regretting her poor choice of boyfriend, Eliza remarks that it's not easy to find a decent man. Mary responds that, in that case, perhaps the solution for her isn't exactly a man. Not offended by the flirtation, Eliza merely shows her lack of interest and goes back inside, where she discovers her mother has seasoned Sam's tea with some creative ingredients. Next door, Roland hears a suspicious noise coming from the water and grabs a flashlight before checking it out. The sound doesn't repeat, and nothing seems different on the surface, so he squats at the edge to get a better look. Something that looks like a gigantic fish swims by him quickly, and he starts calling his wife to come see it too. Bobby comes out just in time to witness the feat of the killer fish, which bites off Roland's head in one gulp. Everyone hears her hysterical screams and rushes outside immediately. In panic, Bobby tries to escape by boat, and soon realizes that the creature hasn't gone away, as her boat is dragged into the bay unnaturally. She screams for help, begging them not to let that thing take her too. Everything goes silent for a few moments as the boat stops, and then a gigantic being appears beneath it. Ramming the hull upwards, the monstrous fish capsizes the boat and throws Bobby into the water. This time, everyone can see the colossal fins surrounding the victim, who is still screaming in terror. Ricardo brings a shotgun, and Sam also starts firing, managing to get several hits. But that doesn't stop the monster, and Bobby is bitten while trying to swim back, leaving everyone stunned. Sam decides it's time to get out of there, and Dan's boat is by far the safest. They stare at each other for a tense moment, and only after a brief argument does Dan agree to the collective ride, but it's all in vain because the fish overturns the boat as soon as Sam starts the engine. He tries another boat, moving very slowly, and still nothing works. The killer fish capsizes that one too, and now two boats are sinking in the swamp. Then Sam realizes that Bobby and Roland's house also functions as a boat. However, that means someone will have to cross the swamp suspended in a bucket, which is quite risky for any adult. Eliza is the only volunteer, despite her mother's protests. Sam helps her get settled in the bucket and begins to pull the rope, trying to hurry the process as her legs dangle very close to the surface. The rope snaps when there's less than 2 meters left, and Eliza falls with half her body into the water. At the bottom of the swamp, we see the horrific fish changing direction, immediately attracted by the movement. However, Eliza manages to scale the facade quickly enough before the beast strikes. Sam takes the opportunity to shoot the fish several times, but the creature simply doesn't die. Eliza enters the neighbor's house through the terrace and, unfortunately, discovers that the plan is unfeasible. Roland had started repairing the engine at some point, but was too lazy to finish the job. When she breaks the bad news to the others, Sam adds that they're out of ammunition. At this moment, everyone stops talking to see what Ricardo is doing. Crouched at the water's edge, he shoots a catfish in the river and waits with the shotgun. The monster fish devours the bait and charges at Ricardo, chomping down on the barrel of the gun. Ricardo pulls the trigger and pushes the inert body of the beast away from him in disgust. Everyone breathes a sigh of relief to see the fisherman victorious from the confrontation, but admiration turns to disbelief when he splits the fish open with a machete, pulls out the heart, and takes it to the grill. Gloria asks what he's doing while the rest start covering their eyes to avoid witnessing it. After sufficiently toasting the heart, Ricardo makes a grand speech of vengeance and barely takes his first bite before being attacked. A second monster fish leaps out of the water and knocks him to the ground, chewing his limbs with ferocity, while everyone screams in horror. When the aquatic beast finally tires, it pushes Ricardo's remains into the river and jumps back in immediately. Along with the shock, the survivors now have to deal with new information, as apparently this fish can breathe outside of water, and no one knows how many are roaming the swamp. Mary begins to speak about a type of fish known as snakehead, capable of staying out of water for long periods. She mentions that there was a problem in a lake in Maryland, and the government had to poison the water to combat the plague. Gloria interrupts the explanation with indignation, asserting that this is no kind of fish, but rather a monster. Back at Bobby's house, Eliza starts washing herself at the sink and doesn't notice that the blood is running down the pipe, attracting the predator's hunger. Meanwhile, Jeff is arriving at the abandoned boat with his crew and soon finds out that the precious cargo is not there. When Eliza finishes washing and changing clothes, a monster fish simply bursts through the wall and invades the bathroom. Luckily, it can't get in all at once and becomes stuck in the hole for a few moments. Eliza leaps over it and runs to the roof, screaming. Dan and Sam are still trying to think of a way out of the swamp while Ricardo's grill begins to spread flames across the floor. Then Mary has an idea and says she knows how they can escape. But the fire reaches the fallen shotgun before she can explain the plan, accidentally firing a shot that goes through Mary's head from her left eye. Everyone is in shock, and Sam goes to find a blanket to cover his colleague. Already a bit drunk, Dan starts to lose control, yelling that the house shot Mary. Sam goes to him and shakes him firmly, telling him to shut up and stop being a nuisance. Gloria kneels next to Mary to pray, and no one notices the fire that keeps spreading. The next damage occurs from the gas canister, which is thrown with an explosion to the other side of the swamp, falling into Bobby's house. Eliza is still on the terrace when the flames begin to consume the entire house. Very anxious, she asks the others what she should do, but there's no time to wait for a response. The house suddenly explodes, throwing Eliza right into the middle of the river. The noise of the explosion attracts the attention of Jeff and his men, who decide to go over to see what happened. Sam jumps into the water without hesitation to save Eliza and starts bringing her back to Gloria and Dan when the fearsome Finn appears. Gloria pricks her palm to drip blood in the water, diverting the monster's focus while the two finish crossing, and Sam manages to bring Eliza to the shore. Dan climbs onto the roof and leaves the ladder ready for his mother-in-law's escape, but the monster attacks very quickly. She is unable to finish climbing the ladder in time, and her lower half is devoured to her daughter's horror. Sam does what he can to console Eliza, but says they need to get out of there fast. The fish strikes again from below with all its strength, shaking the house structures, which begin to slowly sink into the swamp. Dan's behavior is the worst possible, simply crying loudly and demanding that someone save him. Sam takes Eliza to the nearest roof and asks her to keep an eye on him while he goes to get weapons from Ricardo's house. She becomes nervous and says the fish will get him on the way, but Sam tells her to trust him. By this point, the downstairs area is almost entirely submerged, causing the house to tilt sideways. At least this makes it easier for Sam to descend laterally, but the only useful thing he finds is a flare gun. The two houses continue to sink, and when Jeff's boat approaches, only the roof is above the surface. The three stranded individuals get excited at the prospect of rescue and try to warn the other group about the danger, but there's no time. The creature strikes their boat from below, capsizing everyone into the water. They start swimming very quickly, each toward a different roof, but one of the hunters becomes fish food midway. To Sam and Eliza's surprise, Jeff explains that these fish are genetically modified snakeheads. He not only admits to being guilty in all of this, but also shows no remorse, saying he helped create the monster to have the opportunity to hunt something that nobody has ever hunted before. Sam becomes furious, Eliza can't accept it, and Dan is too drunk to react. Suddenly, the infamous Finn appears again on the surface, and Jeff hits the beast with a powerful tranquilizer. He claims that the dose would be enough to take down 2 rhinos at once. Confident that this will do the trick, Anton waits a few minutes and says he wants to return to the boat, eager to leave. Dan becomes anxious about the idea and assures that the fish will wipe out anyone who risks diving in, but Anton suggests they all jump at the same time so the beast can't chase more than one. Without letting him test this theory, The monster fish leaps from the water right then and devours Anton on the spot. Full of adrenaline, Jeff starts shooting at the fish and becomes so excited that he jumps into the river. This almost costs him his life when the fin swims toward him at high speed. His shots are useless, as are Benjamin's, but Sam manages to save him using the flare gun. Jeff rushes to swim to the boat before the beast recovers and offers a ride to the others, as long as they follow his orders. Then the group goes hunting for the monster fish, following the blood trail until dawn. Sam and Eliza grow closer, and Dan feels resentful for being replaced. When Jeff finally finds the monster's lair, he points his gun at Sam and forces him to go first. Dan and Eliza remain in the boat while he enters the water, and the two hunters follow him. Upon entering the cave, Benjamin starts losing his courage quickly and begins to say that the male must be much larger than those females. Sam realizes that Jeff didn't reveal all the details before forcing him to enter there, but he has little choice but to move forward. A few meters in, they find the monster lifeless, and Jeff admits that one is still missing. The first two were females, and he insists that he won't leave that lair without capturing the male alive. Outside, Eliza begins fiddling with the boat's wires to make a direct connection, anticipating the need for a quick escape. Benjamin suddenly disappears, and no one sees where he was attacked. Saying he prefers a bullet than the beast's teeth, Sam ignores Jeff's orders and leaves the lair right as Eliza is ready to depart. Then the three hear gunshots from inside, and Jeff appears screaming. A monster fish much larger than the others comes out of the cave and devours the hunter. The three flee in the boat as fast as possible, but the monster is right behind them. Dan gets knocked over on a sharp curve and falls into a mud pit. Realizing he can't be faster than the animal, Sam uses a paddle to break the protective grate, exposing the propellers. He and Eliza jump into the river when the boat is about to hit the shore. The monster is too fast to stop in time and ends up being shredded by the propellers. Sam and Eliza are showered with guts, but even that doesn't ruin the romance, and they share a kiss. Knowing that Dan might still be alive, the two start swimming towards him without much hurry, since the danger has passed. However, we see that this is not true, as the mud is filled with young monster fish, and Dan has the honor of being their first meal.